helps if I add my camera to the thing, right? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is Doc Skinner with the Doc Skinner podcast this afternoon, April 3rd, 2025. And we're going to have Michael Schratt on, but he wasn't able to do it. So we're going to reschedule him for Tuesday, what was it, the 15th. Is that the next one? Or the 8th? Shoot. Yes, the 8th with Rex Bear. So he'll be here 3:00 there. Fingers crossed. So anyway, for those who don't know, I'm putting on an event that's going to be taking place on a 40-acre private ranch north of Shiloh. And it's a beautiful piece of land. And instead of putting a huge conference together, we decided to do something small, intimate, exclusive, inclusive. So anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about today, just for a little bit. And then tomorrow, there's no show. Next week, let me just get my calendar. Oh, it's so out of sync. Next Tuesday, we've got Camille James Harmon, and Rex Bear, and Michael Schratt. Then on Wednesday, we have Brooks Agnew. On Thursday, we have Laura Eisenhower and Mike Barra. On the 15th, we've got Christopher LaPrath and Michael Mazzala. On the 16th, Tom Reel and Jeff Harmon. And 17th, we'll have Laura Eisenhower on once again. So it's a huge lineup. So if you want to see some amazing people, check it out. And then if you really want to spend some quality time and pick their brain and listen to some stuff that they're not going to talk to a big crowd about, then I suggest checking us out over at 1028 Productions /DE25. It's 1028 Production. Oh, I have to pull it up. There you go. So you see what I'm doing. So here we are. The first week, Mike Bear, Laura Eisenhower, John D'Souza, and Tom Reed for the weekend. The following weekend, May 16th through the 18th, we've got Jim Goodall, Michael Schratt, and two others to be announced. On the 23rd, we have Brad Olson, David Nino Rodriguez, Tony Rodriguez, and Ryan Patrick Burns. Then May 30th, we have some other people coming in, but we have Rex Bear, and then Brooks Agnew, Mike Barra again, JJ Ainsworth, and Marina Serena, her first American ever be over here in America. So it's a really big deal for her. And then once again, Laura Eisenhower, Lily Nova, Daryl James, and Aaron Kuhn, Tyler Kiwala, who, by the way, Lily and Tyler are in Egypt. They've been in Egypt the past 2 weeks. And so I'm really looking forward to getting an interview with them and to hear all the stuff that's been going on with Egypt, because they are boots on the ground. Then we have Camille James Harmon, her husband, James Harmon, astrologer of the stars, Christopher LaPrath, seer of the unseen, and film director Michael Mazzala, who did Unacknowledged and Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. And then to end out the events, the final weekend is Travis Walton, Quincy Roser, James C. Goodall, and the one and only Ben Chasteen from Edge of Wonder. And by the way, he just happens to be right here. How you doing, Ben?
Good. How you doing, Doc? Thanks for having me on.
That's much better. So, what you been up to lately?
Let's see, what have I been up to? Well, we're still doing Edge of Wonder as always. We're growing right now pretty well on Rumble. We also have our YouTube channel, but it's like Rise TV. I actually host on Wednesdays, I do a show called Weirdest News in History, where I find a bunch of weird random stuff all throughout history, and oh my gosh, that's been a massive rabbit hole in itself. Looking up
I'm not gonna let you go until you tell us something.
Yeah. I can definitely talk about some of the really strange things that happen. Because like in old newspapers and stuff, they didn't say like Mothman, Bigfoot, so it's kind of hard to find really old reports. But I started looking at old newspapers, and like, for example, they referred to Bigfoot as the wild man. So when you start looking at these things, you start realizing that there were sightings of like things like the Mothman all the way back in the early 1900s. So they just didn't call it Mothman. So it's like they don't know what to call it, So sometimes it's like referred to this like Birdman thing, and everything, but it's all described in the similar ways. So that's pretty cool. but yeah, and so I am also I don't know if we can talk about it or not, but well, I'm kind of getting involved with a well, I've been working with some people. Let me say this first. I've been working with some people that um, have been massive amount of research they've been doing about people being implanted with biochips without their consent or knowledge of it. And it's affecting a lot more people in society than anyone is aware of. So they have they actually have doctors, they have actual scientists, they have um, actual images of what these chips look like. They actually have the physical chips that have been removed from people. The team that I'm working with all have confirmed they have chips inside of them. The main guy, Jesse, who I had on the show, he's just phenomenal guy. Um, about over 10 years ago, he has a crazy story, but he he witnessed basically, make a long story short, he witnessed a murder done by a sheriff, and
Mm.
he just started. He was only like 20 years old. He was afraid to say anything because everyone was like telling him not to talk about it. 10 years later, he started talking about it. And he said this, like, one day, this black van just came up. These group of like military men came out, grabbed him. Next thing he knows, he's waking up in a dentist office and choking on his saliva. And they did some kind of surgery on him. So he
Mm.
went ahead and got x-rays done, and sure enough, he found this like implant in his jaw. And now he's got cancer where the implant is. So he's been dedicating his whole life to exposing this, and he's talked to so many people. He's scanned over 300 people. Um and what they're finding is a lot more people are having chips, or they're finding frequencies. Let me say it that way, because what they use is EF scans. So for the initial scan, then you can go into more deeper things with the X-rays and everything else. And so with these EF scans, they will use a device that will scan you, and and we make sure that there's no frequencies. Everyone has to turn off their cell phones and everything else, and it'll start the scan. And then when we if it goes to an area in the body where there is a frequency coming off, it will start beeping and it will tell you what the frequency is. Now some people are like, well, how do you know it's not the Wi-Fi signals? Because like we test for all of this. Also, I actually don't have anything in my body. I didn't think I did. I never felt like I was ever abducted or anything else like that. So they scanned me. I came up negative. But
Mm.
anybody in the military, anybody who's been in the military, always positive. They've never had a negative result from anyone who's been in the military. And when you look up these frequencies, these are the things that come up: DARPA owned classified communication systems, satellite systems, aerospace engineering stuff, it's like military. Like, why would this stuff come up, other than that? So we've been working on like putting together a pretty big project, and they're kind of like been recruiting me. Just been having going on doing a lot of interviews right now, and and it's just affecting a lot of people, and it's affecting people in like regular people, like anyone that's had surgery in the last 15 years. Chances are they have something inside of them. um Anyone that's feel like they have missing time any point in their life, or feel like they've been abducted, probably has one in them, or in the military. Jesse uncovered government court documents that stated that anyone who has been out of prison, especially Rikers Island in New York City, over the last 10 years, they've actually put chips in them. So
So,
yeah. And they don't know it. The people that are getting released out of prison, they don't know that these are inside of them.
is this strictly for tracking only, a simple signal, or is this got more components to it?
This is the big question. This is what everyone, and this is like, the stuff that kind of we're working on. they want to, like, I'm kind of assisting them in putting together like a pretty big documentary or project related to this. And they're this is the question that this is the ultimate question. Why are these chips inside of us? So many people. What are they doing? I think that the main thing is tracking, but I think that these chips communicate with other devices, which sound, I mean, this gets kind of crazy and almost like
Like Elon
matrixy.
Musk.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, what Neuralink is doing on the surface, right? It's like you can start using these chips to like communicate with computers, because that's the point of why Elon is developing Neuralink, because it's like, oh, someone who's paraplegic or can't use a computer, now we can have these chips in and they can communicate with the computer, and then their thoughts can go, or they can start moving their body and everything
Wasn't,
else.
wasn't there a movie Daryl or something where he could communicate with computers?
I don't know if it
Wasn't
was
that
called.
Daryl? It was the name of the movie, and it was
Oh
an act.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I never
Yeah,
saw that, but I know what you're talking about.
there you go.
But this goes like so much deeper though, because, and I think that there is something to the 5G waves connecting to these chips. Now, people that have chips, there are signs that a lot of people will be already kind of suspicious, or suspect, I should say, that something's there. Like fake tinnitus is a very common one, where for example, I have real tinnitus because I actually injured my eardrum playing music too loud a long time ago.
Mhm.
But with the fake
DJing like this
tinnitus,
when it works.
yeah, but with fake tinnitus, it's like the high pitched ringing will happen only in certain times, or around certain people. It could be caused by a lot of frequencies. Like, for example, you're walking in somewhere with a lot of Wi-Fi frequencies, or you're using a computer, or you're looking up something that's related to one of these topics, where all of a sudden, like, it could start going off, because it's like it knows what you're doing. Like, whoever's monitoring this will like know what you're doing, and it'll like try to stop you from looking into this stuff.
It sounds like an
Other
anti-barking collar.
Yeah, yeah. Other things could be like really, really strange phenomenon with technology, like cars. You could get into a car and it could start malfunctioning, which actually happened with my own car, with a friend of mine who does have a chip in her. It's all confirmed and everything. And she was like, Ben, your car went crazy when I was driving it. Like, it was like shifting gears automatically. The camera, the
Display.
rear view camera came on, even though she was in drive, and the car just kind of like shut off. I mean, I turned off the start and stop thing, but the car like shut off without turning on. A bunch of other weird things like that, and I'm like, dude, this is never like I've never had a problem with my car. So, and I haven't had a problem since that day that she told me about this. So, and we were
Wow.
doing scans that day when all this was going on, and all of them, there was like, as like they were doing all this, they were all like, man, we were like all hearing stuff. I'm really sensitive to energy, and I can sense certain things around people, like now, especially with these chips. It's almost like the energy is like distorted, if that makes any sense. Like, people, like, if you could take someone's aura, for example, and the energy is a certain way, but with these chips, it kind of distorts that energy field. And I'm starting to pick up a little bit, like, oh, this person might actually be chipped, because I can kind of sense this. And it's not like I can always sense this with people. It just kind of, just certain times, if I need to, or if whatever I'm supposed to experience at that moment, it will kind of happen. So um I know this is like, totally left field of what we're talking about, but this
No,
is
no, no, no,
it's
no, no, no,
it's just
no.
been
It kind of leads into something else I was going to want to talk about in a minute. Go ahead, keep going.
yeah, but I've really been going hard and researching this. And and the big question is like, is this aliens? Is this like black ops military programs? My understanding is that I believe it's a combination of both, after the evidence and what I've seen and the people I've talked to. and I think this technology originated from them. You know, if you talk to like scientists about this, that they will think that the alien abduction, these experiencers are experiencing this, it's actually military that are imprinting, like, you know, creating these false memories in people that they think it's aliens when in reality it's just the military. I think it's a combination of both. I really do. And that's from seeing the scans firsthand, seeing some of the energetic things that I'm experiencing, and hearing the stories from people who feel like they've been abducted. So, but then, you know, we do, there does seem to be the military element to this too, especially, like I said, people within the military and missing time. I've talked to a couple people in the military just recently, a couple of my people I know personally, who are like, dude, I've never said this before, but I have, like, one of my friends here in Florida, I've known him now for like 2 years, because he was just asking me casually what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, I've been like researching all this stuff with these like chips in people's bodies and everything. And he's like, dude, I've
Mhm.
never told anyone this before in my life. But he said, when I was in the military, I was stationed at a base. I can't remember where. And he said he was just walking and it was broad daylight. He's like, the sun was out. I remember, I remember even looking at the sun. I'm just walking and there's a tent in front of me. And I'm walking over to go inside the tent. And he said, as soon as he approaches the tent, he puts 1 foot inside the tent. And he's like, I swear to God, the moon was out. And he's like,
What?
yeah, and he's just like, dude, did they just like take me, and did I just go on this mission and they just like erased my mind like Men in Black style or something? You know? He's like, I don't know. And then he was trying to like justify it in his mind, and he's like, well, did I just totally space out? Like maybe the sun was lower than I thought it was. But then he's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. So he's like, it was a full on, the moon was out. He's like, it wasn't like the sun was just setting. So he's like, and he's like, unfortunately, I didn't even have a watch on. So he's like, I couldn't tell you how much time went by, but he said it was
Mm.
the weirdest thing ever. And he's like, I've never told anyone about this. And I said, yeah, this is a very common thing for people, like, especially driving. I've heard a lot of stories recently where people are driving and then all of a sudden it's like, there's missing time. And they're like, well, how did I get to where I am right now? Like, I shouldn't be where I am, you know? And they're
Mhm.
trying to backstep their process and everything else. There was another same story. Guy said, you know, the sun was out. He was driving. He's also military. All of a sudden, the moon was out, and he's like, you know, further along than where he thought he should be, and it's just like
Wow.
crazy, crazy stuff. And he's like, there's this whole, he said there was about a span of 15 to 25 minutes that was just missing, and he couldn't figure out what happened. And at first, he just thought was like, man, did I just like black out or something and I didn't know and I'm still driving? But then,
Mhm.
you know, but then like he also has a confirmed chip inside of him. So he thought, you know, maybe they took me, something took me right then and there, you know, to put this inside of me. But so the questions are really, why are people being shipped? How are they being shipped? And then who's doing it? You know, and that's what we're trying to, without like pointing fingers at anything directly. It's more just like, here are people's stories, you know, that we can back up with physical evidence, with
Mhm.
scans, with the actual x-rays, with the frequencies, everything else. Now we're trying to, you know, solve what's happening. There's also, you know, when you start looking in the Havana syndrome, there's like government officials that, you know, we're all reporting on what happened to them during the Havana syndrome, and the CIA and the FBI started investigating it, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, we're done investigating this. You know, it was like, what did you find, and why did you stop so abruptly? You know,
Mhm.
it's like, if they obviously figured out something and didn't want to share it with the world. So, but you know, and then the big question is like things like our phones and the devices in our house, like, are they communicating with each other? You know, is it sending information? Is it downloading something? Are we receive? You know, the people who have chips, are they like receiving information? So, you know, it's a scary topic, and it gets even more scarier because it's kind of affecting a lot of the mainstream. It's not just like, oh, just an isolated thing where it's like, oh, if you're just with the military, it's affecting you here or whatever. It's affecting a large group of people in society. So I
Is
think
there a
that
specific place that they keep putting these chips, or is it just random places?
mostly the temples are always like the main areas. Like if someone has a chip, that's usually, or the temples or the back of the neck. Those are the most common places. Now they're so small, they can be anywhere in the body. But back of the neck, temples, top of the head is another kind of common place. Um, Around like the clavicle, like the collarbone area or the sternum, and the chest. They can also be in the hip, but those are like the most
I've heard
common
of hit.
areas. What
I've
would
heard
you say?
hit for the military. I heard hit
Mhm.
for the military, so it would stay with the torso in case their arms got blown off or something. So they can,
Yeah, yeah.
that I understand. That makes sense, and so that they can track them from satellite. I get that they're special forces, but the fact this is almost everybody. Um,
Yeah.
do you in your research do you see that it's becoming more? Uh, uh, it's happening more than it did years gone by, or is it slowing
Yeah,
down?
more. And a big question is like, I mean, this has always been a big question with you know, the big V, the big vax that, I mean, we don't have any solid evidence one way or another. The people that I'm working with, we can't say like this is causing it, but it does bring up a lot of questions. Like for example, when the Japanese government received a shipment, and I can't remember if it was Moderna or Pfizer, and it was back in like 2022, I think it was 2021, 2022, somewhere around there, and they sent it back because they said they found it contaminated with micro like metal contaminants, and so they were like, oh, this is there's something wrong with these. We're finding metal contaminants. We don't want these. And so they sent them back, and it didn't go over too well. And then, and I have no idea if this is related, but about a few months later, I think it was 6 months later, the Japanese prime minister was assassinated.
Hmm.
So I have no idea if that was connected. I don't, I mean, I've kind of looked into it a little bit, but it's like, there could be a lot of things going on there. Um, but and it looks like that when they received it back, they were like, well, we don't find anything wrong with it. We'll just distribute it in the US. So, and again, so like, I'm not comfortable saying like, oh yeah, that's, this is the cause of it or blah, 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 because we don't know. But I think it's good to have kind of all options on the table, even if it does sound totally ludicrous in some aspect. But it's like, well, clearly we know people are being chipped. We know that people are having these inside of them. Now the question is how. And when you talk to the military people, they're like, dude, they pump you with so many vaccines, like who knows what they're injecting you. Right. So it's like, yeah, it's very possible that you could inject somebody, and that seems to be the most logical thing. How else would you get like a chip? And these things are tiny. They're like if you take a grain of rice and break it up into four pieces, that's about how big they are. They're tiny.
Wow.
And that was what we've known for like 5 years ago. So
Hmm.
how small could they be now? I don't know, but what they found was that they were it looked like organic matter, but when you open them up, you can actually see physical wires and stuff inside of them. And it's like little tiny, tiny computer parts and things like that. But on the surface, it just looks like some kind of like organic cell tissue or something. So,
Well, when you think
uh,
about like there's these videos that came out that showed like a zoom in of a microchip and it just kept going and
yeah,
going and going
yeah.
and going. I mean, if we can do that, I'm sure they can do something 1,000 times more extraordinary.
I definitely agree. I actually have a photo of one of these things. I'm just trying to figure out where I
Oh
have it.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Dang it. I'm not sure where it is. but I'll find it. It's on my computer somewhere. But
Can we,
uh,
I wanted to talk to you for a bit, if that's okay, before we
sure.
wrap this thing up about and I'm, there's some things I don't share with the world at all, no matter what. But this one thing, I can't deny it. I'm a gate kid, a
Oh
GATE,
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
I wanted to know. I'm trying to do some more research in it, but everything I research is a trigger and like a memory unlocking. And the fact that when I asked my mom, I said, "Hey, was I ever part of the GATE program?" She goes, "Yeah." Then they called it the TAG program later. I was like,
Tag. Yep.
wow,
Yeah.
wow. Because
You want
sometimes you think, okay, am I just really into all this stuff, and I just wish it was me? But then she confirmed it, and I remember the pills they gave us that were for fluoride pills, the bubble gum
mhm.
juice, headphones, the stuff played by the Monroe Institute, which was to test their hearing. I mean, God, how dumb were
Yep.
we back then?
Oh, I know.
And so there's this big awakening of us gate kids, where as if those things that they gave us and the hypnotism that they did on us and the tests and the classes that we did and learning how to do solve mystery puzzles and all this crazy stuff, that it is worn off because we can remember being in it. We just can't remember much of it until we see triggers where other people like this one girl kept all of her paperwork, her homework, her assignments and all that, which I don't know how she did because we weren't allowed to do that. We always had to turn everything in. We never got to keep anything except our pencil or pen. And but I always thought it was fun
Yeah.
doing the mystery puzzles and the decoding. They did a lot of coding, making us decipher things. Deciphering was really big. Working with talking about sea mammals, whales, and all this stuff. But I remember they really wanted to see what frequencies we could hear. And
Yeah.
being pulled out of class, and you know, I'm hearing these stories, and I'm like, I thought we all had that happen to us. I thought that was part of the public school system.
No.
I didn't realize that
Yeah.
was a CIA program.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It would
know.
make
Well,
so
and
much sense in my life.
here's something that's really weird. One of my best friends growing up, he was part of the tag program, and I remember because like he was super smart, and I just wasn't. It's interesting now, and I think that in a lot of ways I was being protected to like because they were specifically looking for kids with certain abilities, and I think
Yeah.
that on the surface like math was one of my weakest subjects, so it was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, it was like they just completely ignored me, whereas like now looking back on it, I'm like thankful that I
Mhm.
didn't go through that. But one of my best friends was a part of it, and he would always talk about all these experiments that they were doing and everything, and now he
Uh-huh.
literally works for the CIA.
Well, see, that's
And
the
like,
thing, is they're grooming us. I mean, they were
yeah, and
grooming us.
I didn't even put it together until recently. And I'm like,
Mhm.
whoa,
Me too.
dude, that's
I was
crazy.
just talking to a friend of mine about, when I grew up, I was a military brat. And then I went to Marine Military Academy down in Harlingen, Texas, the nation's only Marine Military Academy. And got brainwashed there. And that's I was supposed to go to the Air Force Academy. Everything was lined out for me. I didn't understand. I didn't At that age, you didn't know what grooming was. I didn't understand until years later after I was in the
Yeah,
entertainment industry and found out I was
right.
being groomed in the entertainment industry. And I was like, I don't want any part of this. Um, but what I remember is just it was a lot of for me, it was fun. It was an excuse to get out of math
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. No,
the class
everyone I
whatever,
knew,
and I felt
I was always
special.
jealous because I'm like, oh, you guys get pulled out of class and get to take these like cool, fun tests.
So you thought, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we're told to believe that, but yeah, there was weird stuff. I mean, all the way back to even when I was a kid in preschool
Hmm.
on Mather Air Force Base in Sacramento when it was around. I don't know if it's still around, but uh, parents would drop us off, and we would go on these trips. And I just thought they were just school outings.
Yeah.
Um, and then all I remember is I'd be crying a lot by the time my mom would come pick me up. and I think she just passed it off as me, baby missing her mom. And I just, it's just messed up. But I love doing all the fun, crazy things. Like they would have like half pictures, for example, like this, right? They would say, okay, what does that all say? You know,
Mm,
they'd say, finish the sentence. What does everything say? And I would do it. And
yeah.
I thought everybody could do that. But yeah, it went
Mhm.
on for years. Never got to
Interesting.
keep the homework. And you know who else is one? Apollisteria.
Hmm.
She well,
Yeah.
she's
Remember
a
she
gay
told me
kid.
about that. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's really funny because it's like because of TikTok, all of us we're finding each other, and there's so many of us, um, and they're doing, hey, if you were a gay kid, do you remember this? And they play this sound. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, all these memories start coming back, and it makes you wonder. They told us that we were taking fluoride pills for our teeth, but
Yeah.
I think now fluoride was for our pineal gland. But what if that is worn off? Because there's so many things. One of the things that bothers me the most is that they had us in two camps. Okay, there was two camps that they divvied us up into: the obedient and the rebels. I was a rebel because I was an Air Force, but I was a rebel. And the obedient ones, those are like your friend, ended up in CIA and high
Hmm.
level things. While the other half, who they knew then we would probably go against the grain eventually, but they knew we would eventually have these powers still. They took advantage of us, hypnotized us to um, always self sabotage ourselves throughout life, so we would never be fully successful and thrive and whatnot, to hold us down, so we wouldn't be opposed to them and be a challenge. God, did that all just come out of fuck?
Crazy.
Wow,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
that
think
was
that,
that was weird hearing that.
and I mean, we, I do remember like in grade school, like we were doing these tests, and I think that they were looking for the ones that were really standing out. And it's interesting because, I think that with a lot of my own psychic abilities, well, I remember my mom was kind of telling me when I was really young, like naturally things would kind of come out, and then I think it just kind of I was like kind of blocked for a while, and I think it was literally to like shield me from these programs. It was just like there was a protection over me, and then finally it was like, okay, now it's like once I got a certain age, it was like all this stuff started coming back, and
Mhm.
and it's exactly what happened with me.
Yeah.
And and I was like frustrated in that process, but once I went through all of that, then I really deeply appreciated like all of this, and I was like, wow, I mean, now, especially now that I understand this, I have a really close friend, and who grew up in San Diego and in the 80s, and we were this is right when all the stuff started coming out around like 2017, 18, about all the child trafficking stuff and everything else, and we were both working at the Epic Times, and so he was really researching this stuff. And it was, some I mean, some of it was like, this is like all new, we're just like, oh my gosh, there's this massive thing that's going on, so we
Mhm.
started looking into it and going on like crazy websites to really research and see what's going on, and like he just starts getting massively triggered. And um like I remember he was just super depressed, and he was like, dude, you're like one of the only people I feel like I can talk to. He's like, I don't know what's going on with me. Like he's like, I don't know. Like he's like, there's just something in me that like every time I'm like looking into this stuff, it's like there's something screaming inside of me, and I can't figure out what the hell is going on. So he finally talks to his mom, and was like, look, I don't know what's happening, and he starts telling her what he's researching and what's happening, and he feels like he's being triggered. And she just started crying on the phone with him and said, the whole satanic panic, the school, it started in San Diego. And she said, you were at the school where it was like the birth of the satanic panic happened at the school that he went to during the time that he was there. And he was like, and so then like all of these, like, it was like a wave of these like flashbacks started coming to him about like all these weird sexual things that the teachers were doing and like all of this stuff. And what happened was they literally brought in a baby elephant at the school and killed this baby elephant. And the reason why is because when the kids went to court to talk about it, the court threw it out because they're like, what are you talking about? How did the school bring in a baby elephant and kill it? This is like way over the top. But they did that on purpose, knowing that it was going to be so over the top that no one's going to believe it.
Oh,
and
it's brilliant. It's equally brilliant.
Yeah. And so, and so he had to go through, like, I mean, he was just like meditating a whole lot and just talking to a lot of people. And, I was like, it's probably good for you to just talk about it, because it's going to, like, don't keep this all inside of you. And then, but once he kind of figured out what was going on with him, it's like it made it a little bit easier at that point. He's like, okay, this is insane. And then I was like, maybe you shouldn't research this. But then at the same time, he's like, now I really want to expose all of it. So yeah, it was so wild hearing that story though. But on a side note, I did find the photo of the chips here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, let's see. Can you?
It's been, how long has the chips insertions been going on?
Well, I mean, quite a long time. Definitely from, like, it seems like from the 90s for sure. But it seems to be even earlier than that. But and then again, there's like, is it the alien or the military? And the alien aspect could be going on for an extremely long time. More with the military stuff, I think it's probably started in the 80s, 90s. But they were bigger, and then all of a sudden it's like, now they're like smaller and smaller and smaller. But oh yeah, okay, there we go. So as you can see, like over here, so these are one, and they, like I said, it looks like organic matter. But then that's the size of this thing next to a penny. And when they open this stuff up, they find like wires. And then when they looked more closely at it, they realized that there was like a circuit in these things. So this is another one over here on the right. And then, it's a little bit shaped a little bit different, but same thing. They open it up, and there's actual like elements to wiring and mechanical elements to this, and same thing with, like, some kind of computer chips. So they actually have these on hand. They have other chips. The older ones are more cylindrical and longer, and then they get more sophisticated over time. So,
my God. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It is I was looking for the button.
Mm-hmm.
That is some scary stuff. Because that's about the size of an object that my ex-wife years and years ago, back in 2002 or three, it was to, women love to look at your back and pop zits and whatnot. So she's what's it called? Like chimps, they're grooming you, And she saw this bump and she started working on it while we were lying in bed. And it was something about that size, but it was kind of hard. And we kept it in a little tiny Ziploc bag that we ended up losing in a move. But after that night, I stopped dreaming from that day on.
Wow.
Wake up. I dream while I'm awake. That's why I do what I do, because I'm in a dream state all the time. But yeah, I don't dream at night. I just conk out and wake
That's
up. That's another reason
crazy.
why I'm tired all the time too. I don't get a really solid sleep, but ever since that day, yeah. And I used to have night terrors. I'd tear up the bed, and sheets would be on the ground, and ever since I was a kid. And then after she did that, it just stopped.
Dude, that's so weird. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're a part of the tag program,
Mhm.
I would put money that you have chips in your body, and it seems that most people have more than one too. So,
Mhm.
but that story, that's insane, dude. And that's
Yeah,
probably what it was.
yeah, and I've just been thinking of all these things, and it's like your friend. It's a floodgate that opens
Mhm.
up, and it's like these flashes of moments in your life that they're instantaneously like, oh, snap, I forgot about that, and and then you look at it through the eyes of a 51-year-old compared to when you were 5, and you realize, oh, the danger that you were in. Um, the field trips were big. That was a big thing. Field trips throughout
Mhm.
school, and
Mhm.
sometimes I didn't understand why not everybody went. So, and then this happens, and I see a TikTok video, and they play the opening credits to the Monroe tapes, the Gateway tapes.
Yeah,
Heard that,
yeah.
and I'm like, oh my gosh. Then the other day, I saw um, an old VHS video of an interruption on the Disney Channel back in the 90s when it was new, and it was interrupted, and there was all of this weird, esoteric stuff with the mouse ears and whatnot. But it had the and I saw that. I was like, that's the Monroe Institute. And that was some hacker got into the Disney Channel and did that years and years ago. But anyway, oh, Audrey, really? Seriously? I'm telling you, I have been drawn to all these people that are gateway kids.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so yeah, I adore Audrey. She's a sweetheart. Um, and that makes perfectly sense why you and I get along, dear. Um, it's wow. I would like to do like a poll one day when I have some good numbers. Of course, I am right at 3 o'clock lunchtime right now. So, but everybody's got a nighttime spot, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So 3 o'clock is what the show is. But yeah, I would love to do a whole show on the GATE program. And Audrey, I would love to have you on, um, and get your memories of the GATE program, the places that you may have gone or remember going, or just the homework assignments, the type of color paper they would use. Um, I mean, the psychic cards. That was my first introduction to psychic cards, way before the Ouija board was the psychic cards. And I, it was so weird. It's like I felt I needed to ace those tests when I did them, because I felt, oh, I'm special. I get to do these things. Everybody else has to do geometry. So I'm not gonna lose this gig. And I remember just always trying as hard as I could. And then growing up, and it was only during up until my 28th birthday, is that everything just happened for me. Now, I'm not saying that to be egocentrical or anything like that. It was just what had happened. I never really had to try hard to do anything, get a part in a job, especially in entertainment. I didn't have to audition for jack squat until after I got married, and I did a local town play for the Twilight Zone. And I just anyway, now I have to work my ass off and things, and I don't feel like I'm ever fully successful. But I feel like when I got married and that chip was removed, looking back at it now, hindsight 2020, that that was my divorce finalization, not from my wife, but from the gay program or whatever program, because I feel like there's been this emptiness ever since then. This,
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
whole not knowing. that it could have been the fact that I was a part of something cool for a while, you know,
Right.
but I had to be a rebel, and they put me in the other line, not the other door. So, but I think I think it's time, because so many people, thanks to TikTok, are now having these flashbacks going, oh my God, I did that assignment too. And then they're going and they're digging up stuff and they're pulling out proof and they're doing their videos
Yeah.
and they're finding
Yeah.
all this stuff. And the fact that this is not this conspiracy theory, by the way, CIA invented that word, and this program was CIA.
Yeah,
Still is.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, especially with
I believe this. I've had this connection. I don't know,
yeah.
like this emotional, spiritual connection to Montauk. Didn't know what it was for years. And then, I watched a couple videos, movie here or there, and I'm learning about it. And when I watch these things, I don't want to say I get emotional, but it's like something internal, my internal self is slapping me slowly, going, see. But the me here, and it's like, do I want to admit to that? You know,
Right. Right.
and I try to be reasonable. I'm a creative guy. I'm in the entertainment industry. I have a very elaborate imagination. Could I be fooling myself? But when my mom said, yeah, you were in the gate program,
Mm-hmm.
dude,
Right.
dude.
I mean, it's like same thing with like, well, kind of coming back with these ships, like these conversations, like this conversation we're having right now, this is going to be in the future. Everyone's going to start talking about these things, and I hope the goal is like, it's not going to be like a conspiracy theory. Once the data starts coming out, once people themselves are going to be like, I want to get scanned too. I want to know if I have something in me, and that's when there's going to be a massive change, because it's no longer just like, oh, okay, this person, has this experience and I'm just watching a documentary or watching a movie or whatever. Now all of a sudden everyone's going to start thinking, is this affecting me? Do I have
Well,
this,
it's
or
the
my
same.
kids?
It's the
Yeah.
same psychological game that the pharmaceutical companies do with all these medications. You don't
Hmm.
think about any of this stuff until it's brought up, and then you
Right.
start, in our body, you tell yourself, I may have it, and then you have it, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. So I do think
Um,
that this is going to be a very big conversation in the near future, where a lot more things are going to start, we're going to see this covered a lot more. And eventually, the mainstream media is going to have no choice but to start talking about it at some point in time. I mean, when you can already look up the Havana syndrome, which happened in Cuba. It affected government officials that were there at the U.S. embassy, and then they had to leave because they all got sick. And as soon as they left, they're all feel better.
that was a
And they
sonic weapon,
literally are
wasn't
like, it felt like it was some kind of directed energy weapons that were being used against them. And then, the government just kind of kept quiet about it and kind of swept it underneath the rug. But the people that it affected, they're like, no, this was real. This was not it wasn't something we ate, anything else like this. The symptoms were very strange and unusual, and it felt like it was being directed right at us.
And the
So,
public was just demonstrated that technology not so long ago, in the past couple of weeks.
exactly.
A town,
Yeah.
I don't know, was it in Europe? And all of a sudden, it's a full protest, the whole street, and they hear this, and the crowd just
And they all
parts
fall
like
down.
the ocean sea, the Red Sea.
Yeah.
I mean, just perfectly, because they're all being burned
Yep.
by this weapon, which they use for crowd control. Not radar. Not lidar. That's another kind of. But what's the name of that shield on the top of the trucks for
I,
crowd
I,
control?
I know, I'm sure.
I just forgot the acronym.
It sounds something like LiDAR, but it's not.
Yeah.
RAD or something, or
LRAD.
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 Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah,
Yes. That's what it is.
yeah.
Or is that for weather? The
No, no,
LRAD.
no, no. I think it's the LRAD. I'm pretty sure it is. But and then there's all this like
Yeah.
voice to skull technology and everything, or voice of God, or what is it? Voice of God, or voice to skull, and it's like all like in a conspiracy realm. But now all of a sudden, and then also, I mean, this is now real. And scientists, I just saw an article about this just the other day, that they can now, like, if you're like in a big room, they can now bend sound waves so only it could reach your ears only. Out of everybody in this room, it's like, oh, we can just now and it's like now they have the technology and now it's proven. And they're like, happy that they have this stuff. So it's like, yeah, this stuff has already been floating around for years.
Do you want to know where you want to know where you can prove that technology right now?
Where is that?
In every single seat at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Their technology is, if you're listening to a concert or watching a movie or one of those things, right? And there's any type of dialogue, if you're Hispanic, it right to your seat, you will only hear it in Spanish. If you're Norwegian, it'll be Norwegian over here. If you're German, it'll be German. That is what the Sphere can do for their sound system. And it's like each person gets 7 or 8 points surround sound, each person. And it to the fact that it does that language for each person, because I know they have directional. I actually had a neighbor years ago that had these things that look like flat wall speakers, but they were direct. He was working on the creation of them. They're directional, so it's like a flashlight but with sound. So once it came past you, you could hear it and then it would go away. You'd hear it and go away. Hear it, and it was instantaneous. It wasn't like it wasn't like a Doppler effect, It wasn't anything like that. It was like, dude. And I didn't appreciate, because I wasn't as heavily into everything as I am today. And God, that was missed opportunity now that I look at it. But yeah, he had directional speakers because they could do stuff like, but they do it with microwaves or low frequencies that literally can cook your guts. And the pain is so excruciating. All you want to do is run in the opposite direction. So so what you're saying, that's not James Bond mystical. Wouldn't it be cool if we had it? That's been existed here since at least the 90s, because they were using that during the Bush regime when we were, protesters and stuff. They were using that. I think it is LRAD. I think that is what it is. Yeah,
it's LRAD. Yeah.
So
crazy stuff.
The technology out there, and it's when it all comes down to it, it's all about control. It's the robots versus Zion, the Matrix. We're there. We're just not wearing raggedy clothing. I don't know. There's so much going on, and there's so much that needs to be talked about. And hopefully everybody will, jump on board. To only 20 spots available at Disclosure Experience 2025 this May and June. And if you want to be part of it, remember it's 1028-productions.com/DE25. There it is right there. And we have a slew of amazing speakers lined up. And all we need is you. So go ahead and you can, let me show you how easy this is. So you want to go, you click on this button, says tickets, takes you to the page, you get your ticket. And by the way, the ticket covers everything. Oh, and I meant to play the trailer. That would help explain a lot of things. Let me do that. That would make it a lot easier. Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. All right, I'm going to do this real quick and then we'll say goodbye.
Sure.
And there we go. All right.
Have you ever attended a large conference or event with hundreds of attendees? One that features...
Supposed to play.
Have you ever attended a large conference or event with hundreds of attendees? One that features notable speakers that you hope to ask a single question or at least get an autograph or selfie? Well, the time has come for the opportunity of a lifetime. 1028 Productions and Entertainment is pleased to announce our exclusive inclusive events occurring each weekend in May and June 2025. These events will be held at a private 40-acre ranch in the White Mountains of Arizona. You and 19 other VIP guests will have a once-in-a-lifetime weekend to spend quality time with prominent speakers. The weekend includes discussions, activities, workshops, UFO watching, campfires, meals, barbecues, and nightly entertainment. Scheduled to attend are Tony Rodriguez, James C. Goodall, Michael Schratt.
You're going to DE25.
Ben Chasteen, Brad Olson, David Nino Rodriguez, Ryan Patrick Burns.
Holy shit.
Oh yes, but wait, there's more. Travis Walton, Quincy Roser, Rex Bear, Brooks Agnew, Mike Barra, J.J. Ainsworth, Marina Seren.
So many to choose from.
Can I continue? Laura Eisenhower, Lily Nova, Daryl James, Aaron Kuhn, and Tyler Kiwala, Jeff Harmon, Camille James Harmon, John D'Souza, Tom Reed, Christopher LaPrath, and Michael Mazzola. Your registration fee covers meals, lodging, and open bar, and musical entertainment on Saturday and Sunday nights. Lodging will be provided at our local hotel, the Green Tree Inn, for said weekend. April 20th is the final deadline. For more detailed information and to register for one of these events, go to 1028productions.com/DEE25. Reserve your spot today, as there is limited availability.
So once again, that will be in the weekends of May and June. And each ticket covers everything except for travel to Sholo. We do have an airline here at Sholo Airport called Contour Airlines, Counter. They got a new 30-seat passenger plane, and they can get here. Normally, a drive up here is 3 hours from Phoenix Sky Harbor, and you can jump on their plane. Found out it's $59, and you can get up here from Phoenix to Sholo in under 20 minutes.
Cool. Wow, that's great.
So, anywho. But man, Ben, is always fun hanging out with you, dude.
Yeah.
It's
great.
And I appreciate it. And what else was I gonna say? God, I hate that. You're about to say something and it just flies away.
Especially when you're live, you're like, oh, I was gonna talk about this. I can't remember.
I gotta feel the dead air. No, I appreciate coming on and look forward to this. Real quick, what were you wanting to do? Just real quick, in like 5 minutes, what were you thinking about doing for your half?
Well, I mean, I
know your class. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I'm trying to think too. So one of the things I was thinking about doing is something about like called timelines in flux, such as like the impact of CERN and our perception of reality, and how it's changing, which actually goes into the biochip aspect of things. I found actual evidence of credible scientists talking about how CERN would be the beginning of time travel. And this was in the early 2000s. Once CERN kicks on, it's like silence. But then we have all these Mandela effects, So it's like, what's really going on there? And I found some very interesting documentation from professional scientists getting into essentially Einstein's theory of relativity, and then how time travel would be theoretically possible, but they are describing it in a way that's not theoretical. They're actually describing it in a way that we already achieved this, and they're trying to sound theoretical, if that makes any sense, So it's very, very phenomenal stuff. And then it's like silence after 2008. There's no more articles talking about this stuff. Wow. So, it's really, really fascinating things. Also, I thought I could share a little bit my own personal, more spiritual experiences. I guess you can almost describe it as a near-death experience, except I didn't die, but I had what would be called for anybody else almost like a near-death experience, where I had a very powerful, I was in a life and death situation, which is why I think it happened to me. But it was a very powerful angelic experience that I had. And it completely fundamentally changed my life from that moment on. And it basically told me all these things that I was going to be doing. And I was 22 at the time. And everything came true from what I experienced, So, and I don't really share that story too much. So I thought maybe it would be good to kind of give a little bit more backstory of who I am and why I do what I do and how it all got started. And it really started when I was like 8 years old. So, So anyway, I was just going to get into all of that and kind of what this means for the future. And, then I thought I would give some really interesting Mandela effect examples,
Yeah, because there's a lot of them.
And there's more and more coming out. It's insane. I mean, like the last 2 years straight, every Friday, we do our Friday Night Live on Edge of Wonder. And I'm always thinking like, oh, I won't be able to find any more. Like, I mean, I was like, how many more Mandela effects can there be? I feel like we've like, after 2 years of doing, maybe even 3 years of every Friday presenting one on a Friday, I'm
Wow.
always thinking like, there's no way I'm going to find any more. And it's like, there's always new ones coming out, all the time, and people are finding and everything. And I'm like, this is insane,
We had one happen across the street from a bar I used to work at, and it was a law firm. And the name was like old English letters, really glamorous, but it was the last name of the law firm started with an L. And one day the manager, we were all inside, and he goes outside his car, comes back, goes, "Hey, what's the name of that law firm across the street?" And we all said the same thing. And we go out there, shit you not, the name had changed.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And people are like, no, it's been that forever. And we're like, no, it hasn't.
Yeah,
so that's my personal experience with it. It was crazy. So, all right, well, cool. I'm going to, but hang on for a minute till after we'll chat with you for a second. Just want to say thank you to everybody that hung on with us tonight or today, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And thank you. Hope you see you guys at Disclosure Experience 2025. And remember, folks, as long as we all lift each other up, we will all rise together. I'm Doc Skinner. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm going to find the end button. You stay there, Ben. I'll be right with you. And we'll talk to you all later. Have a great weekend, everybody.